Rural Heritage on RFD TV is brought to you by Rural Heritage Magazine, a bi-monthly magazine featuring articles about farming and logging with draft animal power, small-scale diversified family farming and homesteading, and other aspects of our rich rural heritage. Rural Heritage Magazine, borrowing from yesterday to do the work of today. For subscription information, please call 319-362-3027 or order online at www.ruralheritage.com. Hi, I'm Joe Mishka. Welcome to another episode of Rural Heritage TV. Years ago, Scott Hancock of Sautee Nacoochee, Georgia, put up a barn on his farm using Amish craftsmen to fell and saw the timbers, assemble the framing, and raise the barn in a few days. After moving a few miles to another property, Scott wanted to do it again. So in February 2025, timbers began arriving on pallets, and Amish men and their families soon followed. With the help of scores of non-Amish or English volunteers, the Amish crew had a barn built on the farm in what seemed like no time at all.
My name is Scott Hancock, and we are in the town of Sautee Nacoochee, Georgia. We are actually getting ready for a big event tomorrow, an Amish timber frame barn raising. We actually had one at another farm 18 years ago. And the same Amish folks that were there are here today, and we have been chatting, and they said, Doc, we've got another barn left in us. We want to come build you a barn. So obviously it was an unbelievable opportunity. And so we've been over here working on this property. And they came by train Friday morning at 6:30 in Toccoa, Georgia. They rode a train for 2 days to get here, and picked them up. We brought them over here, a place to stay near our property. And I said, you guys rest up, them and their wives, and maybe in the afternoon we can kind of walk around a little bit and see what we need to get done. And they said, oh no, we're burning daylight. We got a barn to build. So they started yesterday morning as soon as they got here and worked to dark. And they were here at daylight this morning. And they're hammering the timber frame sections together with white oak pegs. Everything seems to be fitting perfect. I mentioned to them it looks good, it's a good fit, and one of my Amish friends rubbed his whiskers and said, Doc, it's supposed to fit, isn't it? And I guess that was a borderline insult that I thought it wouldn't. But so anyway, they're here. It means a lot to me, and a lot of people in the community are here. We're going to call this the Barnabas Barn, Barnabas being the son of encouragement. And we want to use this barn. We've always enjoyed children coming, and we'll have sheep and horses and a few chickens, and we just enjoy sharing this with kids. But we really want to focus on handicapped kids in a wheelchair, and we're working on a hydraulic system that can lift them into a buggy or a wagon and try to give these kids a good day, and it would bless us to do that. So that's the goal, and we're dedicating the barn to a lady named Mary Jim Luce, and she'll be surprised. She's the lady that sold us this property and had a vision and talked to us about that. So there's a lot going on, just really excited, and it's a blessing. I think we're going to have a good attendance, and so everyone's wide open right now.
Why build a more conventional barn than just a pole barn?
Well, these barns are really well built. This wood is resting on concrete knee walls. When you go to Ohio and Pennsylvania and Iowa and Missouri, some of these old Amish barns are 200 years old. And the reason is you're not putting posts in the ground where they rot. You're putting posts on concrete. So they're really structurally sound. And with that, it's just a better barn. It's a piece of art to me, the way they do this, realizing these people went out when the snow flies, hooked horses up, drug these logs out of the woods in Minnesota, often below zero, brought it into their sawmill, and then hand notched it. Everything here has been done with hand tools, drills, everything, and then it's put together with white oak pegs. So it's kind of an art farm, and to me, I loved it. And it all started 40 years ago when I was in practice in Ohio, and a Amish guy called me out of the blue and had a case, and we worked on it, and fortunately it did okay, and we became friends, and really close friends. He had a knack. He had really nice horses, and he was a good horseman, always took good care. And he called one Saturday sort of excited, rattled, if you will, and said, "Doc, you got to come out here and look at this horse." I figured something was cut or colicking, and so I ran out there, and I said, what is it? What's the matter? He said, "Nothing's the matter." He said, "I've got a rainmaker." "Levi, what are you talking about?" He said, "This horse is just too fast to go to church in." And he said, "I've never had a horse with this much talent." And so the story goes, they got him qualified. His name was B. Corps Pete. I think he was $20,000 shy of $1 million in earnings. It was the Walt Disney story. I traveled with a horse. I sort of tuned him up, and truthfully, I'm not sure anything I did made him faster. He had the heart to win. We just took good care of him. And so Levi, when it was all over, said he noticed when I was in his barn, I always complimented the timber frame. And so he said, "We're going to send the boys down and build you a barn." So that happened because of one horse that I was fortunate enough to be able to work with, and so the story goes.
So there's a few key people that actually make this happen, and so there's several of the people that are here that actually cut this out, cut all the notches out, did all the measuring and figured it all out. Actually in Minnesota, and then it got trucked down here, and as you can see, it went together very well.
It's a little bit of a dance that you guys do. You know what I mean? It's
yes.
I don't know how else to describe it. It's an orchestra you got going on.
It is definitely. It helps a lot that the majority of us have worked together before. We kind of know what's going on and what the other person's going to do, and kind of support each other that way. I will say on this particular barn, we're a little short-staffed, so it makes it a little challenging.
Sure.
It's nice if you have 4 or 5 people, key people that are really into and know exactly what's going on. That way they can kind of become the little sub-leaders of different groups to make things happen at the same time.
Right, you get done faster, and you
Right.
don't have to go back and fix a mistake.
Right.
I mean, I was noticing that it's when you guys were squaring up the frame for the wall on the out. I didn't see that wall go up, but when you guys were putting it together and before you put the pegs in, you were squaring everything up.
Mm-hmm.
You guys were doing a lot of communicating.
Right.
So that's what it takes, I'm guessing. Just
That is what it takes. Just that little bit of communication before you actually do anything can really help once the frame goes up. So once it's up in the air, it's a little bit harder to work with. So if you get it right on the ground, get it all squared up, that's going to, if the foundation's level, Daniel's did a great job on the foundation, so that's all level. So that's level, and if that's level and we square everything up, that wall's automatically going to be level when it sets up on the wall. I mean, you've seen yesterday a lot of what goes on, but it begins way before that. But anyway,
and you can talk about that.
No, that's totally fine. No,
go ahead. I'm trying to be conscious of your time.
No, you're doing great. So I wasn't actually involved in anything before this arrived on site here. But generally, obviously you have to harvest the logs, cut the logs. And they have to actually be dried before you can put them up. You can't put them up green because they'll warp. So they all have to be dried and seasoned before you actually do any notching or anything like that.
Because they would also change on their way down here.
Right. So they'll contract and yeah, exactly. You have some very competent carpenters around here. They'll right. It's just getting basically the main frame up, especially the mortise and tenon stuff, and then everything can be added on after that, including some of the siding if it needs to be. So.
Is this what you do for a full-time living? Barns?
No, this is really rough for me. I'm actually a truck driver. So.
Are you really? Are you over the road?
No, I have a local dump trucking company. So
in Ohio.
In Ohio,
yeah.
Yes.
Near Sugar Creek, Mount Hope.
A little bit south of, maybe 35, 40 miles southwest.
Wayne County.
I'm actually in Knox County, and a lot of like the center posts are identical, so they just need to be put in the center, and they'll fit as long as you turn them the right way. So.
Okay. All right. You put up the first thing that you put up in the air was the far wall.
Yes.
Okay, because I wasn't here yesterday for that.
Yeah.
And then there's a middle wall.
Mm-hmm.
Do you put that up on the ground first and bring it up, or do you put that up in?
So being that the middle wall doesn't have, the outside wall has a little more structure to it.
Right.
So that kind of holds together a little better. The middle wall, we actually just set the posts up, put bracing on it, and then the beams you see up top there are placed afterwards.
So you're building that in place.
Mm-hmm.
And then the wall closest to us is a lot like the far wall.
Right.
You built that in place.
Yeah. So that'll get stood up. That section, there's about 3/4 of it that's framed up. That'll get stood up the way it is, framed on the ground, and then the rest will be pieced in, just because we don't have a large enough spreader bar to do the whole wall, and it'll become unstable. So.
Sure. Okay. All right. What is the longest piece of wood that you have for this barn?
I don't know exactly. I know some of the sheeting and the lean-to rafters there are, I think, 22 feet.
Okay.
That's about it. This isn't a super huge barn, but yeah.
This is James and John.
James is on the left.
Yeah, John's on the right.
James is on the left. Okay. All right.
So he's they're 3 and 4 year old Belgians we got from the Mount Hope sale in Ohio. Dr. Hancock, he actually picked them out. They came from Indiana. You'll have to help me with that. The
Shipshewana.
Yeah. So right. they broke them cutting and baling hay, or I guess not baling hay,
right.
gathering hay.
I mean, they stand awful good for such young horses.
That's right.
They're hardened up real good for young horses.
Yes, sir. We've been working them as much as we can.
I never would have guessed they were that young, actually.
Yes, sir. They're good horses. They still, for me being green and them being green, it's fun sometimes. But I grew up team roping and around horses. I'm an equine veterinarian, so that's so I know horses pretty good.
That helps a lot.
That helps a lot.
Yeah, when they're telegraphing something, you can pick up on it.
That's right.
You know how to be calm around them.
Yes, sir.
Because you can get a horse nervous just by being nervous.
That's right. That's right. So
and you run into that a lot as a vet.
Absolutely.
Horseshoers and vets, they need the handlers of the horse to be trained as well as the horse.
That's the hardest part.
It is. It is. You got to sometimes tell them to get out of the barn.
That's right. So, but they do good. We took them. So we do a little bit. Our church has it's called Front Porch Housing. So they like sort of house some single moms and their kids, or just people who need a little help out, and they so they've got about 150 kids on site in Greenville, South Carolina. And so we took them at Christmas time and loaded that wagon up with Christmas presents and gave them rides around and went through downtown Greenville, down Main Street. It was pretty
cool
fun.
Is that?
And I'd never had them in that much traffic.
Right,
and
in the public.
They did great.
That's awesome.
It was
because they wouldn't have run into that a lot on the Amish farm in Shipshewana.
That's right. But I mean, they're pretty level-headed and just gentle giants, and they did great. I mean, we had, and actually the law enforcement had toys for tots going the same day.
Okay.
And so they came right by us like sirens blazing, and I was a little nervous. I was like, here we go.
Of course.
And but they never missed a beat. They were tired, but they never missed a beat.
Because when they spook, it gets western real fast.
That's right.
It cascades
right.
in the public.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You can't just run them into a wall.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
But
Do you know how tall they stand?
I haven't they've grown since I've had them for about 1.5 years, so they've grown since I've had them. If I had to guess, I mean, I would say, they're 17 hands, I guess.
No, bigger than that.
Bigger than that.
Yeah, they're bigger than that.
So they.
I think so. Yeah, definitely bigger than that.
So maybe closer to 18 then.
Yeah, it would be fun to get a stick on them.
Yeah,
they're big horses.
We can stick them.
And they're proportional. They got real good body.
Yes, sir.
Scott did a good job picking them out.
He did, and so John's, they're full brothers. So John's the older one, James is the younger one, and so he's the off horse. Is that correct?
No, the one on the right is the off horse.
Off horse.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah,
Okay,
the one on the
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, yeah.
John's the off horse.
Yeah.
He's definitely, so he's a little more spooky on the ground. Not bad, but like James is the younger one, but he's a lot quieter on the ground. But this horse is game. He's the workhorse. The best part about him, my boys are running around here somewhere.
Right, I saw him yesterday.
So we plowed a turnip patch this year, and so we plowed a turnip patch, raised turnips, and then they sold all through the holidays when they were out of school. They sold turnip. They got to harvest the turnips and
Wow.
pick them, and they sold them. We've got a little country store that just opened down the way from our vet practice, and so he let them come and sell the turnips, and
wow,
it's pretty neat. Our community, we're sort of getting, I guess, urban sprawl from Greenville,
right.
But like we're enough out in the country that like my neighbor Zeke Boggs, he opened that store, and he lets people come and sell their local produce, and
so that's good.
Yeah.
To be near a metropolitan market,
That's
because
right.
then they buy the veggies. They think they're being country when they come out.
That's right, and that's
Yeah.
our plan this spring. Me and the boys, we're gonna plant a huge garden with them, and then try to sell some sweet corn and some just all kind of vegetables. So
Nice.
teach the boys the value of $1 in hard work.
Those boys were so well behaved and so eager to jump in,
Right.
but respectful to stay back
Yes,
until they got it offered. I was amazed at how well
Thank you,
behaved
sir.
those two
Thank you,
boys
sir.
were.
Thank you, sir.
I guess they've been raised right. Is the
thank
way
you,
to say
sir.
it. No, they were terrific.
This was I lived in Kidron, Ohio, and I lived that was part of Wayne County, but I serviced homes in Wayne County. And there were horses everywhere, and
Right.
it was
I mean, that's the heart of Amish
it was
country outside
buggies
of
where I
Wayne.
lived. More buggies went by every day than cars, and so it was just a perfect opportunity. I was a good horseman because I was raised with horses, but you get out of vet school and you realize you just have a license to learn how to practice. So it was a journey, but it was a perfect opportunity for me to be there, and learned a lot. There wasn't many lawyers to sue you, and the Amish just said do the best you can, but we only want to spend about $100. Horses were really cheap, so you had to be creative, and I'm sure we lost a lot of cases, but we didn't lose them for lack of passion or lack of trying, and it taught me a lot. I learned to make plasma and blood transfusions and a lot of things that we only were lectured on in school. I tried, and a few horses did well from it, and it kind of helped me have more confidence. And then that later led to a phenomenal journey with the government. We made plasma for Department of Defense using draft horses, and all of that ended up from that beginning and opportunity, and what I thought was maybe a detour I didn't plan. I wanted to be in Lexington, but it all worked out fine.
Mr. Daniel was talking to me about an anthrax vaccine. Does that sound familiar?
Well, no, what I was just a veterinarian on a team, a really bright scientist, and the mission was to develop hyperimmune draft horses and make immunoglobulins against botulinum toxin. The deadliest neurotoxin on the planet is botulinum. And I was recruited through CDC. I'm not sure how, truthfully, but to sort of get involved. They wouldn't tell me much in the beginning because it was classified, and as it developed, I ended up with a secret classification, and my mission was to kind of covertly, we bought a lot of draft horses. We assimilated them at 2 major farms, and then we had kind of a experimental farm, and we stayed under the radar screen, and the idea was to take a 2,000-pound draft horse could give you 20 liters of plasma-rich immunoglobulins. That would save about 500 lives. And my initial orders were to make 250,000 human doses. And I was over my head. I mean, I realized soon. And I was allowed to travel, and I worked with very, very smart people. I often felt like the donkey at the mahogany table among thoroughbreds from Harvard, Dartmouth, Yale. I mean, these were top-class people, and somehow or another, maybe it was a hybrid vigor, but I was able to kind of work with the team and maybe farm boy ingenuity. But we ended up with a FDA licensed product, and it's hidden all over America in what's called the SNS, the Strategic National Stockpile. So from a below average guy and probably an average veterinarian, to have a journey like that was, to me, it was just a God wink. I mean, I went all over the world, and I met the most fascinating people, and the product worked. We know a lot of human beings were given it, and it was amazing how well it worked. And to be a part of that was an honor. And so I did that for 15 years and 5 months, and we ended up with a licensed product. And then I was detailed into D.C. When it really got to be a crisis, because it was a huge threat to our security. And once we got it licensed, I feel like I did what I knew how to do, and the rest of the stuff hanging out in BSL labs were not important to me, and I wanted to get back in. And then I was blessed to be able to work for a company called Beringer Ingelheim. It's the Beringer family from Ingelheim, Germany. They're 5th generation. They made their big break in immunology in the human world, and they had a veterinary division. Well, I'm certainly not an immunologist, but I was certainly exposed to it because my mission was so huge. I became acutely aware of what I didn't know, but I had a great skill for knowing who to ask, and it seemed to work out. So I worked for them as a veterinarian, and it's been a fantastic journey.
This program is available for purchase. To order your copy, please call 319-362-3027 or visit www.ruralheritage.com. Rural Heritage is a bi-monthly magazine dedicated to draft animal farming and logging, as well as other aspects of our rich rural heritage. It is published by Mishka Press, which also offers a complete line of Back to the Land books, DVDs, and calendars. Call or write for a catalog or subscription information, or visit our website at www.ruralheritage.com.